I was joking. Very nice. Okay, the crowd has thinned out. Everyone that's here, well, say it negative. Is there anyone here that has not had an introduction to this topic? And you would appreciate receiving an introduction to this topic? Okay, we'll do it quickly. Sometimes Prabhupada would say that Krishna consciousness is a cultural conquest. You heard that before? Cultural conquest. Cultural conquest doesn't just mean send your daughter to take Bharatanatyam dance classes. That's not what it means. Or send your son to learn how to make, Vedic architecture, etc. So culture, and certainly those are elements of culture, but culture has a much broader meaning, and spiritual culture is it's a whole way of life. It's everything, and a part of everything is the values that make up that culture, and we've been focusing on the values of Srimad Bhagavatam. A little part of the background is Oxford University has a religion department, and a division of that religion department is Vaishnava Studies. Credited, you can get a degree in Vaishnava Studies at Oxford University. And those professors, many of them, most of them, as far as I know, are ISKCON devotee members. They, in addition to creating curriculum for Oxford University students, they've created some curriculum to help explain the teachings of Vaishnavism to the secular world. So one of those work products is very simple. It's a handout and been passed out in digital form. Gita Values, they called it, created by, they call themselves the Oxford Project, but it's, anyway. So Bhagavad Gita's values are more than 6, and Bhagavad Gita's values are certainly within the Srimad Bhagavatam. The relationship is there's precept, and then there's historical narrative to illustrate the precept. And it helps to understand the precept through the examples of the Srimad Bhagavatam. They're actual histories, and through those histories, precepts are revealed. Krishna and his devotees, and then the process of becoming a devotee, and then there's also the negative, the asura element, and the absence of spiritual culture. So we spent some time, the last 3 evenings, here we are again, using an image, metaphorical image, that people in the world, government people, corporate people, social activist people, and different purpose-driven people wish to take a look at today's culture and move it to a better culture. So there's 3 main elements with those people that study culture. Like an iceberg has its tip, and the tip of the iceberg is what you can see. So within culture, it's behaviors, something measurable, something quantifiable, something that's, the sociologists and people like that study, if it's groups of people and their culture. And then supporting the culture is the values of a group of people. their mission statement, the vision statement, something that they explicitly express, their official belief system, the values that they hold. And groups of people, organizations, corporations, religions, groups of people have such a thing. For us, it's the 7 purposes of ISKCON, for example. Srila Prabhupada created or drafted them. And then beneath that, in the iceberg metaphor, there's the very bottom of the iceberg, and that's values and beliefs and stated purposes and those kinds of things can change, but there's some unchanging universal assumptions about life. We can say, who you are. You're a spirit soul. That doesn't change if your values change and your behaviors change. So unchanging, unchallengeable certainties. That's part of culture. So the idea is to align them all to get an ideal culture. In our case, the spiritual culture is self-realization, where there's values that are reflective of that life of self-realization and behaviors that reflect that. So it's an alignment consideration. We spent some time discussing wisdom versus knowledge, wisdom versus information. Information education today is very much involved in transferal of information without establishing character. So if you put information in the hands of persons that don't have character, they're dangerous. They can do dangerous things, and sometimes they do really dangerous things because there isn't character behind the information. On the other hand, wisdom is based in character, and give information to a person of wisdom, they know how to use it properly. Similarly, in Bhagavad Gita, there's chapter 13, 6 questions at the beginning of the chapter. One of those questions, Arjuna wants to know from Krishna, what is knowledge, jnanam, and the object of knowledge, gyayam. So knowledge is a long list, and each of those items of knowledge are qualities, because a person that has knowledge has qualities or character. And so there's a big difference between what you know and what your character is, and your state of realization of those and manifesting of those qualities. A term that's used in sociology or people, the cultural engineering people, is liminal space. That's where we are today, where we want to be, and there's a big gap. So that liminal means the in-between this and that. It's a carpenter term, it's an architectural term, it's a sociological term, it's a cultural term. A gap between here and there. You're looking a little puzzled. You're not puzzled. Oh, next to you. Yeah. You're puzzled? You're okay, good. Okay. Just like, I've been mentioning this, but when you enter a building, enter your home, there's the porch, there's the outside, and then there's the foyer where you receive people. They take off their shoes and things. And then there's this strip of wood that's between the outside and the inside. It's called limen. It comes from a Latin word. Limen is a Latin word that means in between, a juncture between this and that. So liminal space is for us to go from where we're forgetful of Krishna to remembering Krishna. and a whole lifestyle that has values and behaviors that are consistent with that. So when we hear about the values of Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, we don't need to get nervous or guilty or sad or something like that because, oh, we're not there yet, or intimidated or think it's too far or too high or something. It's part of a journey, of many lifetimes journey for that matter. And we've so far covered 3. Now we're on value number 4, and we're going to postpone completing 5 and 6. That's coming attractions. So there is a logic to the sequence. The first one who we discussed was Samadarshana. Do any of our young girls here, do you know the verse, Samadarshana verse? You do. Do you mind reciting it for us? You want to say it together? Vidya. Fantastic. Oh, right. Do you know the meaning? What's the meaning of the word vidya? Vidya means, don't put your finger in your mouth. Vidya means? Knowledge. Very good. So a person who has knowledge, vidya, a pandit, you know what that word means, a learned person, right? Pandita. Samadarshana, they see equally because they have the knowledge that although there are differences, the differences mentioned are a brahmana, a cow, an elephant, dog, and a dog eater. And of course, there's other varieties besides those 5. We can see, when those who are learned, a pundit, they see that there's differences for sure, and they also see there's something that's the same that's within everyone, and that's the spirit, soul, the spark of life that's animating the differences. Without that soul present, everything disintegrates. It's the integrating force of life, and that's something we all share. So we spoke about Samadarshana. It's a value. When you see that and you live it, then you can do the next thing. You can be ahimsa. You can not be violent towards others, but non-violent. We spent some time speaking about harsh communication or violent communication and non-violent communication, and we covered some principles. And then the third, what was the third one? Who remembers? Yesterday evening. Humility. Humility. So we learned what humility isn't, and we learned what humility is, and it's still resting upon a spiritual conception. And there's the characteristics of one who has humility, and there are characteristics of one that doesn't. And we did some role play to demonstrate those that have it and those that don't. And what's false humility, what's pride, it's the opposite of humility, and what's humility? Resting upon the spiritual conception. So once again, these values aren't goals in themselves. It's part of the alignment process to reach our goal. The goal is to know who we are. That's the bottom of the iceberg. And there's values that reflect that goal, and then there's behaviors that demonstrate that value. And we want to align them all eventually. By the bhakti process, it's certainly possible. So now, value number 4 is this acharya principle. It's really nice not knowing Sanskrit and then hearing Prabhupada explain it. So my first introduction to this word acharya or achar is Prabhupada would say, there are two words. There's more than two words, but there's two words. Prachar and achar. Prachar is what you say, achar is what you do. And an acharya is one that doesn't say one thing and do another thing. That's called hypocrisy. And hypocrisy is not something lovely. But when you speak something and you live according to that something, that's acharya. And therefore you teach by your example. And of the two, achar is stronger. Just like in school, or in your workplace, or when I travel. I can't sit down and give a Bhagavad Gita class to everybody. Or you can't do that in school, or you can't do it but you can show by example, this is what a Krishna Bhakta is like. By your character, by your demeanor, by the way you act, by the way you dress, by the way you speak, by the mannerisms that you project. Of course, we're all individuals. We'll do each of those things a little differently. But resting upon character or quality or a value, so you can be an acharya anywhere you go. In fact, recognize it or not, you are. The verse, do you know this one? Yad yad acharati shreshtas? No? There's a verse, what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that whatever the Shrestha people do, that's the people that are elevated, they set it an example, and then other people follow the example. Tat tat evi tarojana. People in general follow the Shrestha people. And the Shrestha people are those that set a good example. Just like, Hiranyakashipu, he's a bad example. But he had a lot of followers. Or Ravana, he had a lot of followers. He was an exemplary asura. And he had a lot of followers. Because so in this world, we need some acharyas. We need people that show by example. You may not be able to sit down and give a Bhagavad Gita class in the different circumstances of life. But you can certainly be a perambulatory Bhagavad Gita. Why not? Know what it is, bring it inside, and live it. That's what an acharya is, teaching by example. Now, the next slide is fun already. Do you know what the skit is?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to have a skit. First thing, kaboom. Okay. What's the skit? I don't know what this one is.
So, yeah, may I please request the
One
devotees
second.
to clear
From
some
here.
space here?
You have to turn and face him. We were okay. Just turn and face him. All right.
This doesn't need microphone.
He doesn't need a microphone.
There's no dialogues.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. An acharya. Oh no. Wow. No explanation needed.
विद्या विनय संपन्ने
विद्या विनय संपन्ने
ब्राह्मणे गविहस्तिनि
ब्राह्मणे कविहस्तिनि
सुनिचैव स्वपाके च
सुनिचैव स्वपाके च
पंडिता समदर्शिनः
पंडिता समदर्शिनः विद्या विनय संपन्ने ब्राह्मणे कविहस्तिनि सुनिचैव स्वपाके च पंडिता समदर्शिनः.
Good example, bad example. That's the Shrestha verse. So now a little group discussion. Role models. Not who, but why. Why have role models left a lasting impact on our lives? What is it about role models? I mean, like this kid, or like our personal life, or what we see in the world. Why? Any sharing, kind of any thoughts on this question? Yes?
They make us
I think just speak loud. Just
they
speak.
make us feel it's practical and we can, so they're setting an example to make it look practical.
Yes, yes. Then we know how because there's the example. It's practical. Good, good. Yeah,
They are famous, so we want to follow them.
famous. They're famous. Can there be examples that aren't famous?
Yeah, there can be both good and bad.
But besides good and bad, famous and not famous. I mean, just like, a classmate at school, for example.
Yeah, so they call it like a popular kid,
Yeah,
and there are kids who want to follow them.
okay, okay. Yes,
It's based on their character, how they handle situations. That's what makes them role models.
okay. But the why they're a role model, why have role models left a lasting impact on our lives?
Because they handle.
They show us how to handle situations by their character and their good example. Yes,
Maybe they are basically successful in what they are doing, or basically what you like, and they are very successfully accomplish what you have vision or whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they become your role model.
Very good, very good, very good. Yes,
They are inspiring others to follow what is not generally being followed everywhere.
okay. Now we're speaking here of of course, good role models, because there's lots of the other kind, but good role models, not everyone's following that, but they stand out and they stand by their convictions, and they're modeling it for us.
They're passionate about what they like in life.
Yeah, and so why have role models left a lasting impact on our lives?
So we
We get passionate too.
Successful.
yeah, more they are successful, they are passionate, and so we like to become like them.
Okay. But I don't want to go too far with this, but 1, 2, 3, and then we're done. Do you want to achieve it? Oh, yeah.
Maharaj, one of the things we see is in places like Chicago and in New York, there are these mentors who have themselves been in difficult situations and who came out of it. So they go and coach the kids. They play the role model and say, hey, this is how you need to be, this is how you. So they leave a lasting impression on the kids.
Well, I have a different, pardon me, but I have a different impression of what mentors do than say, hey, there's what you got to do.
They basically do what?
They don't, yeah, basically they're modeling, but they're not saying, hey, here's what you got to do. They're not fixing the problem. That's not what mentors do. Mataji. Yes.
Maharaj, they follow the scriptures, that's why the impact will be last.
I like it. Jamuna Jivana and one more and then we're done.
I was going to say, Maharaj, we're social beings, and so as social beings, we're always dependent on some other person to be impressed to be impressed by. So, therefore, role models leave a lasting impact on our lives.
Very good. Very good. Some of you may remember, I remember because I looked at it so many times, that needs pyramid, and one of them was autonomy. That's the one that Premananda's, her eyebrows went way up here. You couldn't see, but I could see. But just below that was interpersonal. We're social beings. And it's a need. We have social needs. And when we can connect, just like you said, it's a need. And it's good to have role model because it connects us with what's good. What Scripture says, right?
What I felt was they are so determined about what they follow. And second thing is they're very honest. Third thing is with that they touch so many others' lives.
Yes, now we're speaking the good role models. Not like the other one. Because that is a role model also. It's another kind. Okay, so, good. This is, what do you call those people? They, like, inspirational, get everybody riled up, worked up people. What do you call those people?
Motivational speakers.
Huh?
Motivational speakers.
Motivational speakers, yeah. Thank you.
Life coach.
Life coach. But, he's like a rah-rah. He's the one that tells you how to do it. Your walk talks. Imagine trying to translate this into Chinese.
Was it that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Your walk talk. But they got it. I mean, it's not alliteration like we have in English, like repeating the same consonant again and again. But your walk talks, and your talk talks, but your walk talks louder than your talk talks.
Tongue twister.
Which is what I said that Prabhupada said. Of the two, achar is stronger. It speaks louder than words. You don't have to say, you just be. That's like a Mahatma Gandhi thing. So from 3rd chapter Bhagavad Gita, that's this verse Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So Krishna was encouraging Arjuna to be such a person, to be a Shrestha. One of Prabhupada's disciples is named Bharata Shrestha, Arjuna. Okay, so I think I'll just do this rather than switch it over to a facilitator. I'll tell a little story first. Well, we'll do this thing and I'll tell a little story. Spend a little bit of time, and we're going to do some sharing one-on-one at the bottom down here. A person, just one person, who, or more than one, I guess, positively influenced your personal life. From childhood, a teacher, or some important, historical personality who you look up to as a hero-like person. It's maybe a family member, something. And what quality of theirs attracted you the most? So, do we have paper? We have paper. Look at this. We're prepared. And write it down, because writing it down helps you remember, and it also helps get the language really clear. How did that quality of theirs influence you? And then we're going to do this discussion at the bottom with somebody, whoever you like. One-on-one is best. Or in groups of 3 is also okay. So, but, I just want to tell a story. There's real quick. Some military man died, and he was carrying with him not only his, they called it a dog tag, this metal piece that says who you are, but he had this little piece of paper that when he died, everyone found this little piece of paper and noted that every evening before he slept, he opened that little piece of paper. It was worn thin where it folded over, and it was a note from his teacher in grade school appreciating him in some way. And it touched his heart, and it stayed with him, that feeling stayed with him from that little note, that he just remembered the teacher and his appreciation that the teacher had for him as a human being. And it carried him through his adult life. There's more details, but in each of our lives, there's certainly some person or persons who have deeply made some impact. So now spend a little time, and then we'll do a little sharing. Try to finish up. Another minute. You should have a clear idea by now. As far as possible, pair up in twos. You three ladies in the back row back there, you may have to sit in a group of three. Unless you can figure out another way to do this. But share with somebody for a few minutes. It's very clear. One more minute. Okay, we're going to move on. This time, wind up your discussions, please. This time, it's moving from our own experience to inspiring heroes that you find in Srimad Bhagavatam, role model type of personalities from Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm going to ask for some volunteers, but consider specific qualities in those Bhagavatam personalities that inspire your faith and help you in your journey of Krishna consciousness. So just quietly pause and reflect a little bit. Anyone would like to share a few? We'll take a little bit of time. Yes. Say a little bit about Queen Kunti. The specific here is what qualities in her inspire your faith in Krishna consciousness?
She went through so many problems in her life. She let Krishna go. She always held on to Krishna. That's really inspiring.
Good, it's a good inspiration to have, for sure. Fantastic. Okay. Yes.
I also thought about Mother Kunti, and specifically I've heard you glorify Kunti's faith in her spiritual shelters. So you give the example that when Bhim didn't come back from the forest, she turned to Vidura, and Vidura said, don't worry, Vyasudeva said your sons will live a long time. And just the quality of, just by hearing, she had such faith that she gave up her anxiety. So that faith in spiritual preceptor.
And for those of you who are mothers, that's big faith. Big faith. She had all trust in Vidura. Even above her motherly instinct. That's big. Someone else, yes.
Ambarish Maharaj is always inspiring to me.
Go ahead.
I have heard whenever you narrate the pastime, one particular statement just sticks to me. When the fiery demon comes to him from Durvasa Muni, neither his feet nor his mind move an inch. His strong faith in the Lord.
Protection.
So steady.
It's beyond human. Something comes flying at you. You don't have to think about it. He's a Kshatriya. He didn't move. Doesn't mean that when something comes flying at you, you're supposed to keep your arms by your side. And that's, if that's the standard of your being Krishna conscious, it's very unique in his case, but full faith. Someone else. There's a lot of hands up. We're not going to get everybody's hand. Go ahead.
For me, the most inspiring hero.
The
from-
most inspiring. Whoa.
Because that is what is written.
Huh?
That is written there, so.
I thought I changed it. Some of your most inspiring. Yes, I did change it. Go ahead.
Is Narad Muni.
Narada Muni.
He has a true equal vision towards everyone. Whether it is his own disciple Vyasdeva or a child like Prahlad or Dhruva, or it is Daksha or Prachina Parishad,
Okay,
wherever he was
you're way
doing.
ahead of us because we're going to touch on that. We're going to see Narada Muni's picture in a few moments. So hold up, we'll call on you then. One more.
Prahlad Maharaj.
Prahlad. Say something about Prahlad, please. Not too much.
One thing, even though he was pushed from the cliff, he was always, he did not think about him, but he was thinking about, oh, nothing should happen to
The Lord is
Krishna.
my Lord. Who can think like that?
Who can think like that?
Okay. Well, term acharya, it's a principle of teaching, and you teach by example. So we're going to touch on some of the elements of teaching by example, showing a picture of Srila Prabhupada here. The principle of equal vision, that's the first value, where if you think about it even a little bit, he was a gentleman, an aristocratic, wealthy, Vaishnava, Brahmana, elevated soul. And he came and sat in the midst of, I mean, who knows what they smelled like and what they were eating and drinking and saying, and he sat right in the middle of those less than human beings, and it was just seeing their spiritual need and trying to administer their spiritual need. Very kind. So, our modern day acharyas, they do this. They show their qualification, this value that they have of seeing with equal vision. Another principle is of acharya. Prabhupada spoke about it, and he demonstrated it, simple living and high thinking. The photograph, of course, is his quarters in the Radha Damodar temple. I'm sure many of you have been there or will go there, and it's so tiny. It's so tiny. And the other little room where he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. It's so tiny. Now, the foot traffic that goes through the Radha Damodar temple today is there's zero privacy. It's really noisy and et cetera, et cetera. It wasn't as trafficked then as it is today. But still, he was right off of the main assembly hall whenever there was arti and whatever else was going on, festivals and this and that, right in the middle of everything, in these little tiny rooms. But living very simply. And even when he was this, the leading acharya of many, many thousands of followers, he continued to live in that very simple fashion. So now, acharyas teach like that. Here's a nice painting. Let's see. Don't say, raise your hand if you know. Who are these two personalities indicated in this painting? I see 3 hands. 3 hands. Not so sure, huh? Not so sure. But when I'll tell you, I'm pausing so that you remember the painting. Who knows? Shatrupa?
Vidura and Maitreya.
Vidura and Maitreya. about 2.5 cantos worth of Bhagavatam is Maitreya speaking to Vidura. Very elevated, very, very elevated discussions. When Sutta Goswami is narrating to the sages of Naimisharanya about this exchange between the two, he said, wow, they're way up there. Maitreya is this and Vidura is that, and they had this. Could you share their conversation? It must be really awesome. That wasn't the language, but like that. And so, extended discussion. Are there other examples in the Bhagavatam, persons exemplifying simple living, high thinking? If you can think of one, raise your hand.
Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Swami.
Parikshit Maharaj, the king, he took off his royal attire and crown and this and that, and simple garments, and by the bank of the river, Shukadeva Goswami was dressed in the 4 directions. Pretty simple. Can't get more simple. Yeah.
Kardama Muni.
Kardama Muni. Say a little bit about Kardama Muni, please.
He was son of Lord Brahma, but he was like living in the forest as a sage. I mean, simple living and high thinking.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Narada Mahamuni's mother, she would always invite Bhagavatars to her home and serve them.
Well, it wasn't her home, but she was very, very happy, simple lady, doing simple service to elevated souls. Very happy, and engaging her son too. Yes.
I think Bharat Maharaj as well. Bharat Maharaj.
So say a little bit about
He
him.
lived a very simple life in the forest, practicing devotion when he got distracted a little bit.
Yeah, he got distracted a little bit. Yeah.
Mentally,
Yeah.
Rantidev,
Ooh, Ranti Dev. Say a little bit about Ranti Dev.
although Rantidev was a great king and Kshatriya, he used to subsist on alms that he used to get, and he was very generous in sharing that with.
He was famous for how charitable he was. Whatever he had, he gave. Although he was king. Yes, last one. Sudama. Whoa. You want to say something about Sudama? Extreme poverty. He liked that lifestyle. He liked it a lot. Too much. His wife was disturbed. He liked it too much. You don't want to disturb our wives. Okay. Our more recent acharyas also exemplify the same simple living and high thinking principles or value. Contemporary acharyas, any examples besides the Bhagavatam personalities? One or two? Raghunath Das Goswami. Someone else? Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Who? Narottam Das Thakur. Srila Prabhupada. Okay, we're good. My immediate thought goes to Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji, as he was renunciation personified. Raghunath similarly. Okay, so these are elements of the Acharya value And principle number 3 is exemplifying service to awaken others' eternal spiritual nature. This photograph has special meaning for me. I'm not going to go into it elaborately, but it's Prabhupada preparing his Bhaktivedanta purports in the dead of night when his young, energetic, enthusiastic, wholesome 20-year-old followers were sound asleep, and he was spending hours every night doing his Bhaktivedanta purports for all of us, leaving behind a boat to cross the ocean of material existence. And it's still carrying passengers, that boat. Okay, go ahead. Who were some of the recipients of Narada Muni's mercy? Start the list. And then others, listen carefully, see if you can catch the ones he didn't speak.
Vyasadeva, Dhruva, Prahlad.
Slow. Vyasadeva, Dhruva, Prahlad.
Prachina Varishat.
Prachina Varishat.
In one sense, Daksha also.
Daksha.
Mrigari.
Mrigari. Fantastic.
Yudhishthir Maharaj.
Yudhishthir Maharaj. He was the spiritual master of the Pandavas. Maharaj Chitraketu. We're going to see his picture shortly.
Nalakuvera and
Manigriva.
Nalakuvera and Manigriva. Valmiki. I mean, what a range, huh? And the other examples of persons who were giving mercy so liberally to others. Now this is Srimad Bhagavatam personalities specifically. Huh? Jad Bharat. He was a little restricted who he gave to. When he gave, there was a downpour. But he certainly did.
Prahlad Maharaj.
Let's raise hands because it'll just be a little more orderly.
Prahlad Maharaj to his friends when he was preaching to his friends. Yeah.
Not only his friends,
And
his teachers, and his dear father. A sort of a
Vyasadeva giving to everyone actually.
fantastic. Yeah.
Vidura, he helped Dhritarashtra.
Yeah, he did. Poor Dhritarashtra was in bad shape. Yeah.
Ambarish was praying for Durvasa.
Yeah. Really good. Last one.
Kapila Dev.
Kapila Dev. To say,
Mercy to his mother, mercy to Amshuman, all the uncles that were all burned to ashes by him.
okay, good. There's, by the way, it's not in the Bhagavatam, but elsewhere there's a description of others who he also delivered transcendental knowledge to. It's not a big long list, but besides what's in the Bhagavatam, other Puranas give that information. Okay. Exemplifying same image here, but spiritual life is practical. Whoever we are. So he made, Srila Prabhupada of course, made Krishna consciousness meaningful, relevant, and relatable to all types of people. To all types of people. In the world, but there's lots of types of people in the world. Of course, here's Prahlad Maharaj, and not only he gave teachings that were fully dependent upon the personality of Godhead, he exemplified it. Again, from Srimad Bhagavatam, some additional examples. You're coming up with one, or you're just shifting your weight over there? Okay. Yeah.
Well, I'm really inspired by Vasudev and how he handled the situation when Kamsa got angry and wanted to kill Devaki. His poise, his calmness, his thoughtfulness, his scriptural understanding and conviction was just out of this world.
And his character, because who's Kamsa gonna listen to? Nobody. But he listened to Vasudeva because he trusted him. Because he was trustworthy and he kept his word. It's a little more tricky, huh, this one? You have one? Our young girl in the t-shirt here, yeah?
No,
No, okay.
not at the moment.
Okay, I thought you were getting ready to. Yes?
Sorry, Maharaj, just to clarify the question.
Spiritual life is practical. Wherever and whoever we are. Different circumstances of life, but making spiritual life practical in our lives and those who we come in touch with. So personalities from Srimad Bhagavatam, like that.
Chitraketu,
Say, explain.
when he's being cursed by Mother Parvati, even though it's not apparently fair, but he accepted as supreme intervention.
Okay. Is everyone familiar with that story? Not familiar. Not familiar. King Chitraketu, we're going to see his picture shortly. He was a king that was really attached. Angira came, saw, oh, this man is too much attached. He can't hear anything. He wanted a son. He made some arrangement through some yagya he could have a son. But he wasn't meant to have a son, so the son died when he was still an infant because the co-wives poisoned the son. They were envious. And he was super distressed. Angira and Narada came and gave him transcendental knowledge and a life of devotion. And he took up the life of devotion in the fast lane. And in his very same lifetime, he became a resident of Vidyadhara Loka. And he was visiting one time Lord Shiva. And he made some remark, seeing Parvati on the lap of Lord Shiva. His intended message was, who but Lord Shiva could remain undisturbed in this circumstance? But Parvati thought that the King Chitraketu was criticizing wrongly, improperly, Lord Shiva, so she cursed him. You become a demon. And he didn't react and say, well, hey, Mother Parvati, you got it wrong. You fixed this thing you just did. So he is accepted and explained himself mildly, and then circumambulated Parvati and went away and became a demon. And went back to Godhead. You know, rapido. So that was the difference. All the way in the back.
Pandavas,
Say a little bit more than Pandavas.
even though they were put in a different difficult situations, but they faith on Krishna. They were
Yeah. Yeah. Draupadi too, right? Phew. Awesome. Good. Pratibha.
I was thinking of Vitrasura.
Vritrasura. Vritrasura. So you know who Vritrasura is? Same story. When Chitraketu was cursed to become a demon, the demon he became was Vritrasura. But he was in this elevated consciousness, although in a demon's body. And he had some combat with Indra. And then,
Yeah, even though he knew the outcome, he still fought with Indra, and he spoke Bhagavad Gita to Indra.
He did, yeah, he did, he spoke a little more than Bhagavad Gita. He spoke pure love of Godhead too. Okay, what, last one?
The same one.
Same one. Okay. You have the different one, different one, last one, okay. He's not in the Bhagavatam, but that's okay. Actually, he's mentioned in the Bhagavatam, but it's okay. Okay. The 9 processes of bhakti, we're running late. 9 processes of bhakti. Somebody, one of the great devotees, exemplified each of these 9 processes of bhakti. Now what about us? We're way down here, there's that liminal space, we're way over there, and there's this big gap between this acharya thing and where we are. So how can we be examples? Toss that one away. Well, personalities in the Bhagavatam, they also face distractions, but through association of great souls, they regained their Krishna consciousness and attained the supreme destination. Dhruva took a while, but Dhruva gave up his anger and took to Krishna's shelter by the intervention of Narada. There's Chitraketu. Chitraketu is the king over here, and this is his son that died because he was poisoned by these ladies over here as co-queens. That's the queen wearing the crown. And this is Narada and Angira. And so the scene that's being portrayed is the child is dead. Narada addresses the child, my dear boy, just see how distressed your father is because you've gone away. Please come back and give affection and fulfill the happiness of your father. The child came back to life and sat up, didn't even look at his father, he just looked at Narada and pointing to him, saying, you know, who's my father? Who can say my father? I've had so many fathers, and the most recent was that fellow over there, but, you know, before him, and you know, I was just with my eternal father, so I'm going back, see you later. Laid back down. Of course, he spoke some transcendental knowledge in between. So then Chitraketu got it, I got it. I got it. So he followed Narada's instructions of pure devotion and became this resident of a heavenly planet, Vidyadharaloka, etc. So Chitraketu moved from lamentation to Krishna's shelter. This is Ajamila, when he was a young man, Brahmana, going into the forest to get ingredients for yajna, and saw the scene you see here, and got a little attached. But instead, he got the association of the Vishnu Dutas, and he achieved spiritual perfection. So although we're weak and limited and imperfect in so many things, we have to strive to follow those who are perfected beings, and we have this line of disciplic succession to look to and take strength from and try to follow. That's what we should do to be Acharya-like. An Acharya inspires integrity. Teaching by example is the essence of education, just like the little skit that we saw earlier. Leading by example is the essence of governance. Exemplifying one's principles is the basis of dignity, respect, and trust. This final statement is a statement of the Amish people. It's part of their mission statement, and it's what and they stand by it. The example that's pointed to, that I'm familiar with, is when 2 of their teenage children were shot by somebody passing by in a car, and they killed them. And then immediately the community got together, went to their place of worship, and prayed for the forgiveness of the wrongdoers, with the statement that, this is a principle. We believe in taking shelter in God, and even in such a distressing circumstance, horrible circumstance, it doesn't change your principle. Exemplifying one's principles is the basis of dignity, respect, and trust. So a little closure here. In Bhagavad Gita, both Arjuna and in Srimad Bhagavatam, many personalities exemplify, this is the Acharya principle now, how to inquire, how to hear, how to be open-hearted, how to be dutiful, how to face ever-changing life, how to face inevitable death, how to move from false ego to the real self. So this is accessible in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So in Bhadra Purnima mood, give a set of Srimad Bhagavatam to somebody and love it and live it. Be the Acharya of the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a little application exercise. You're going to need your paper or your handheld device again. I'll say it, but you can study it a little bit. And at the end, we're going to do some sharing. But from these 4 sessions, there's 2 remaining. Write down one action plan that you'd like to try for each quality or value for the next 1 month. Write down an action plan. So, Samadarshana, Ahimsa, humility, Acharya. This is where it gets serious now. You gotta do something. How to apply this in your practical life. So, some part of the day, something, you can read what it says. Have a 4th one, have somebody you hold yourself accountable to, and you're going to work on the above things. And then at the end, you can share with somebody what your thoughts are. And I'm going to be quiet for a while. Do you need more time? No? Okay. I think we have some time to have you do the little one-on-one sharing. So we'll take a few minutes and do that. Somebody next to you or nearby, share what your thoughts are on action plan.
So first thing came to mind is the second principle, ahimsa, specifically the aspect of applying empathic communication.
You're really working on it. Have you ever taught it?
Yeah, I tried for some time now. Again, it's now again this I want to take this as an opportunity to again, like at least a month, contemplate and focus follow. So I want to apply specifically observing the feelings of others, try to understand their needs, and speaking, requesting in that manner so that I get connected to them instead of agitating them. So I want to do that. Also, I would like to read empathy communication book, some of the aspects once again in this month, and I would like to pray every day. Think at least in a humble mode that let me cultivate this to Guru and Krishna for their pleasure. What I want to every day once at least I want to think about so that is the action plan. So now you are my judge for 1 month.
Judge.
10 weeks accountable person.
And so you are for my things. For me, it's a work, Acharya principle at work. I want to take this opportunity to be more Krishna conscious. Like especially Maharaj was telling, why don't we read preamble Bhagavad Gita? Right?
Why don't we be the preamble of Bhagavad Gita? When they see us, they should be living
by Bhagavad Gita. So that's so exciting. So right now, like I just quickly wrote my inner thing is doership, and then middle level of job security. Maybe like insecurity also actually. Someone putting down like that, and then behavior is aggressive, non-violent, and compassionate. Want to change to exemplary behavior, serving nature, and compassionate nature. Be Krishna conscious, some way back Maharaj said, just be Krishna conscious, they will become devotees in some birth. And then have value in Bhagavad Gita actually. I want to do it during the lunchtime. Have the values rooted in Bhagavad Gita. I already have the verses written by Jay Patak Maharaj, how to overcome fear and all these things. Somewhere like values written in Bhagavad Gita.
Try to wrap it up. Another minute.
So, next one. Non-violent, exemplary, compassionate, behavior, more of attractive Krishna consciousness, values in Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
I mean, it's been in line with my thoughts recently.
We have two little video clips at the end. So entertaining or something. Here's a little summary of what we've been doing. These spiritual values combined with our mantra meditation, the intention is we can then awaken our Krishna consciousness. The mantra meditation is awakening the mood, dormant, forgotten mood of being in Krishna's service, guide that mood of service with spiritual values, and our Krishna consciousness becomes restored, naturally so. So now, the skit that we saw, that's what's in the video. As we did yesterday, the mean, harsh, non-empathetic, prideful discussion is the bad and the good. I think it's fine.
Looks like rain again today. Dark clouds gather, fill the sky. Don't know how to talk to you, just know how to say goodbye.
that's the bad example. Then we're going to get a good example. Thank God. Good examples. These are both Christian publications, but the idea is fine.
นี่คือเรื่องราวระหว่างฉันกับลูกและสับปะรดฉันไม่ได้เรียนหนังสือไม่รู้ว่าต้องพูดต้องสอนแบบไหนฉันรู้แค่ว่าต้องทำให้ดูให้เขาเห็นเป็นตัวอย่าง
เป็นไงล่ะ อร่อยกว่าไอติมอีกใช่ไหมจ้าแม่น่าทำขายนะแม่เนาะไอติมสับปะรดนะคะไอติมสับปะรดนะคะไอติมสับปะรดนะคะไอติมสับปะรดนะคะ แม่ ทำไมไม่มีใครซื้อเลยอ่ะ งั้นลองไปดูที่ตลาดว่าเขาขายกันยังไงจริงไหมจ๊ะกล่องละ53 กล่อง10จ้าพี่จอมครับพี่อร่อยครับพี่จอมครับจ้าที่กล่องละ5นะคะ3 กล่อง10จ้า สับปะรดนะคะสับปะรดทีละไม้ค่ะไม้ละ5 บาทค่ะ3 ไม้10 บาทนะคะสับปะรดไหมคะ
พอเห็นเขาได้สังเกตได้ลองทำเอง วันนี้ฉันสบายใจแล้ว ที่เห็นเขาทำได้แบบนี้ และมั่นใจว่า วันข้างหน้าถ้าไม่มีฉัน เขาจะยืนได้ด้วยตัวเขาเอง
อัชราภูสวัสดิ์ได้รับทุนจากโครงการสอนรักจนจบปริญญาตรีปี 2556 แรงบันดาลใจจากครอบครัวสร้างการเรียนรู้ที่ไม่รู้จบสารรักจาก AIS
Hare Krishna. Shadrupa found those. I don't know where she found those. Oh. Okay. Nice going. So, you have your. You better watch out when you come and attend my little gatherings. You might have some homework to do.